Whether it's the looming, ever-felt presence of the atomic bomb in the middle of Megaton in Fallout 3, a bent staircase dead center in a twisted art playground of Sander Cohen in Bioshock's Fort Frolic, or even the winding, decayed streets of Dunwall, rotten to the core, much like those who live there. However, it takes more than just strong iconography to resonate with players. A familiarity of how things are in the real world help us know when something feels right in a game. The expectations of a game world and how we use the natural parts of the game and the gameplay can reinforce that the location is believable and truly resonate with the player. That same focus on creating a world that connects with the player can be seen throughout Prey's Talos 1. Now, as much as I love the design of its main lobby and the ability to allow the player the opportunity to dive deeper into the area every time they come through, there's one place which opens the door to see how the world really used to be before the chaos of the Typhon. And that is where the crew lived. It's the crew quarters themselves where we can gain that insight. Seeing exactly how people lived can create a strong connection to a player going through the world. The player themselves might not be jumping around rooftops using supernatural powers, shooting lightning from their fingertips at everything that moves, or avoiding the costly mistake of waking the nearest Yaogwai, because those actions do not connect with how people live on a day-to-day basis in the real world. What the crew does for fun, where they sleep, where they eat, and what is important to them, those are the questions that make exploring somewhere like the crew quarters so engaging. Being able to put yourself in their place and better understand what was lost before the Typhon. It's only a few hours into the game itself where you come upon the crew quarters. Where some games might not care as much what goes next to what, or why something might need to be in a particular place, Prey gets this right. The inclusion of such necessary elements, such as living quarters, range from small sleeping pods for the working crew, large rooms for those with more importance on the ship, to the suites at the very top for the executives reigning over the station itself. Not only does this provide a glimpse into how they lived, but also the defining social hierarchy that can be seen throughout the station. With additional elements of entertainment, which include movies, a recreation room, as well as a bar for some much needed R&R, a dining room that can fit not just everyone in the 2 levels of players allowed to roam, but also accounting for the many levels and rooms above we can't access. Last but surely not least, we have the gym, which includes weightlifting areas above and a swimming pool below, providing a glimpse into the lives of those who live there and their desire to stay physically fit, socially active, or maybe even a deeper aspiration of self-improvement and progression within their own lives. Each of these elements are connected into a small lobby, like a resort or a mall that we would be very, very familiar with here on Earth. On top of all of these additions, the developers are still able to create small hideaways, shortcuts, and hidden areas for the player to find which are not too out of place within the crew quarters. Strong level design in one area does not mean that there is strong design throughout the whole game, and creating a unified world is where most games fall short. Now, despite a few stumbles when it comes to level design, Prey does not fall. Very few times in the game have I ever felt more connected to a world than when I was doing something so simple as taking an elevator from the top of the ship to the bottom. Because in doing so, I went through the entirety of the main lobby in a matter of seconds, turning all of its details and intricacies into a flash on my way to my next objective. What was unique about this elevator ride was that I knew that I had the ability to stop in the main lobby, but I didn't. And it generated the illusion that the game world was continuing without me. And in a game when it is the player against the ship, that sense of futility was pitch perfect. However, it created a feeling of smallness that I did not feel as strong throughout the rest of the game, because it was when I got back off the elevator I was met with one thing only: a door to a loading screen. It's here where Prey and the desire to create a connected world falls short. even though there are many gameplay, story, scripting, and graphical challenges that would need to be overcome to create that fully open world. Prey instead gives a glimpse into that connected world that they wanted the player to experience, which only feels less and less connected after every loading screen. To ask the developers to have an entirely open world game would be a tremendous task, but there are elements within the game itself that the developers could use to help create that world. Things like elevators providing time to load new areas, corridors, or even smaller, easily rendered rooms that need to be traversed in order to get to the next area. Maybe even moving through the vast ventilation system on the station itself to go to those different areas, which would have elevated the feeling of mastering the ship itself and knowing those extra secret passageways to get to your next objective. These elements could be used to lock in the world that they set out to create. Small bits of this idea were implemented with various ways into the different areas on the station. However, most of this movement was reduced to going outside to spacewalk to another entrance, sneak fight running your way through to the next loading zone, or using the very literal ship guts to move between the upper and lower areas of the ship. Other ideas might be enduring a gauntlet in a new section to find your way back to a familiar area that would provide gameplay more akin to the Soulsborne series in the looping back around together of different areas and unraveling the twisted nature of the station. As the player explores more and more, they would become an expert on the environment, knowing the best ways to get from A to B and beyond. Having that player learn the station itself rather than the systems the station runs on would improve the flow the developers have put so much time into making. This flow can come from various parts of the world itself, of course the interconnectedness of the map. And despite the loading screen rant that I just went on, there are still many parts of how the locations are linked together which do deserve great praise. Most particularly comes as the result of the developer's choice not to allow fast travel and the need to truly explore the entire station to see what elements are connected together. That main generator of flow comes from a very simple but also very prominent art style within the game. The use of mid-century Art Deco design is more than just set dressing. It can tell more about the world and the people in it than you might think. Jumping back into the history of the game, the discovery of this new alien species came just around that time, the mid-century, and with it, much like the lives of the people living then, time stopped. There were advancements and changes, technological, scientific, societal, philosophical, and with all of those changes happening on the world, it's no wonder that the desire for some things to stay the same would exist. There's a tendency in the midst of dramatic change for people to hold on what is familiar, because it is stable and strong, and from the time before all the change. Not with the mindset of stopping the change, but having a stable footing for the changes to be made. The history of Talos 1 is in the style of the station itself. The walls, the furniture, the architecture, and the station as a whole resonates with the stories and the themes core to the game. It is in big details and small throughout the design of Talos 1 that we can attach ourselves to and make the station somewhere more than what we just saw at first glance. When it comes to making a believable space, it takes more than just walls, a handful of enemies or characters, and a goal that keeps you moving from one room to another. It takes somewhere that feels real, that feels lived in, connected, and with history dying to be uncovered. Using detailed environments that are well planned from what we are familiar with, along with using our expectations of the game itself, it can make a level more than just a level. It can make it iconic. I want to thank you very much for listening. This has been our part 2 of our environmental storytelling through Prey. Remember to check in next week for our final part of this series as we dive into the small vignettes within the game itself. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. This has been Devin J, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.